Same, but different. But still the same, but different. I'm just kidding, these two are not the same. This is the LTD Phoenix-1000 Deluxe and this is the Gibson Firebird High Performance. What's funny is that Gibson tried to make a modern version of their Firebird, calling it the High Performance, while the modern Phoenix is trying to be retro with a P90 pickup and vintage white paint. Do the past and the future meet somewhere in the middle? Or are they very different from each other? Indeed they are, and I'm gonna explain all the differences now. Let's talk similarities and differences. Both of these guitars feature mahogany wings. They both have mahogany neck through body construction, but the mahogany neck on the Firebird features 9 pieces of mahogany and walnut, while here we have 3 pieces of mahogany in the LTD. The mahogany wings are thicker on the LTD, as I shall demonstrate in a minute. They are thinner on the Gibson. The scale length is a huge difference. The LTD is 25.5 inches, the Gibson is 24.75. We got 14-inch radius and pearloid inlays, 12-inch radius, mother of pearl inlays. Obviously the headstock is smaller on the LTD and the tuners are different. Then we have this huge chunk of a headstock, almost like on a bass guitar with the Firebird. The controls layout is also different. You have 2 knobs in the Phoenix, 4 knobs on the Firebird, and the output jack is on the top, it's on the side here in the Phoenix. This means that there is no routing underneath the pickguard of the LTD, there is routing underneath the pickguard of the Gibson for the 3-way switch. Another modern feature is that you don't have a comfort cutaway on the Gibson, you have this one for the forearm on the LTD. Now I'm gonna turn them around and show you the differences in the back. The back is where the differences truly show. The mahogany wings on the LTD are thicker, so they form this back that looks like a single piece of wood. But it is still neck through body construction. In the Firebird we have the thinner wings and you can clearly see the neck going through them. The belly cutaway on the LTD is deeper, it's longer and shallower on the Gibson. The upper horn on both guitars look similar, but the lower horn is where the differences are. Here is the Gibson, it is sharper and curved on the LTD. The electronics compartment on the LTD houses the 3-way switch and the output jack is here on the side. The Gibson's compartment houses the 4 pots and the output jack. The Phoenix has a slightly better balance to begin with, and here is the original position of the strap button. You can see that it has been moved to the same position in the Gibson. This greatly improves balance because you see the headstock on the Gibson is huge compared to the LTD. Here's the similarity, the axis heel on the Gibson is cut deeper and resembles the one on the LTD, but remember this is the high performance modernized version of the Gibson. Obviously the Gibson has Steinberger gearless tuners, no volute, the LTD has a volute and regular tuners. To sum it all up, the Phoenix is the modern version of the Firebird. The glorious Phoenix series were reintroduced back in NAMM 2020 with the Phoenix-1000 in vintage white and see-through black cherry. There are also the black metal and the cool looking Arctic metal, which will get yellow in time. There are a couple of new models for this year, the Phoenix-1000 in silver sunburst satin. The Evertune bridge is a kind of a deal breaker for me. The Phoenix-7 baritone black metal, and this one you cannot open, but it's the cool see-through black sunburst, which I would really like to see in person. Looks great. No burst on the back, unfortunately. Here's our boy, the Phoenix-1000 in vintage white. I always try to give you the original listing and the specs of these if they are still available online. You can pause at any time and read those. I'm gonna leave you a couple of seconds with the specs so you can check them out, and then I'm gonna go through them. Let's go through the specs, shall we? We have the mahogany wings, and this entire thing is the neck, same as with the Firebird. 3-piece mahogany neck through body construction to be exact. Then we have Macassar ebony fingerboard. 25.5-inch scale length, longer than the Firebird. We have 14-inch radius, 12 in the Firebird, and we have 22 extra jumbo frets and molded nut. Ooh, nice, locking LTD tuners. This is the Seymour Duncan Fat Cat, but we don't call it that because it's sensitive. The factory Seymour Duncan Custom had been replaced with Bare Knuckle Bootcamp Brute Force. Tone Pro locking bridge and tailpiece, volume, 3-way switch, tone with a split. The output jack is on the side. The cavities on Indonesian-made guitars in the World Musical Instruments factory. Is this paint really that expensive so you don't use it on the entire cavity? Come on, spread it all over that like ESP does. Anyway, I see something interesting. The routing for the neck pickup goes through here and all the way to the back, the electronics. At first I didn't realize what I was seeing. You see those two seam lines here? This is a wedged piece of wood. If you look at the top at a certain angle, you will see the seam lines. I shall explain in a couple of seconds why they had to cut an additional piece of wood and glue it to the top like this in order to fit the neck pickup. The pick guard is here just for looks. There's no routing for a 3-way switch or the pickups underneath it. The pick guard itself is 3-ply white, black, white with 5 holes. If you have watched my Firebird video, you know that there is routing underneath the pick guard for the 3-way switch and the pickups. The LTD doesn't have that, so they had to cut the top in order to fit the neck pickup. Look at the cavity on the Firebird. Here's the 3-way switch, here's the electronics, and the cavity goes all the way to the pickups like this. The LTD doesn't have that. If you look closely, you will see this little piece of mahogany that they had to glue to the top because they cut it in order to fit the neck Fat Cat. It's the only way to do it since the Phoenix doesn't feature a maple top. The vintage white has a vintage style of pickup in the neck position. The Seymour Duncan Fat Cat designated SPH 901N neck, made in 2020. Made in America, of course, gold in the humbucker form. The stock Seymour Duncan Custom has been replaced with the Bare Knuckle Brute Force BFB Brute Force bridge open coil style. It also splits. Black flat top slanted pickup rings. The Bare Knuckle Brute Force bridge measures at 1454, seems about right. The Seymour Duncan Fat Cat is at 8.11 k ohms. Middle position, both of them, 526. I'm gonna split the Brute Force. It measures 738 split. Both pickups with the split Bare Knuckle, 3.89. A little cleaning up before I continue. I always feel like Alan Grant from the first Jurassic Park while doing this. The bridge and tailpiece are Tone Pro locking. I will lock them to demonstrate. I will lock them again after I finish because I like to save the setup on this particular guitar. Tone Pro on the bottom. These bridges are used on the EC1000 Eclipse series as well. They lock in place with 1.5mm Allen wrench. A reminder to always lock these small bolts when you put the bridge and tailpiece in place so you don't lose those. The bridge is metric, thumb wheel and screwdriver adjustable. Same with the tailpiece, gold hardware, Tone Pro locking stays in place through this 1.5mm Allen bolt. The good thing about locking hardware is not only that it saves your setup, but I can safely work on this guitar strings off without anything falling from it. It's a neck through body construction. This entire thing is 3 pieces of mahogany. It has white binding on the fingerboard, black side dot inlays. The fingerboard is Macassar ebony, brownish with a lot of beautiful streaks on it. I think it's a perfect fit for the vintage white finish. These are the same waving flag inlays that you're used to seeing on Eclipse series. Even though they're pearloid, they look great. The 2022 models feature stainless steel frets, but since this is 2020, the first year for the newly introduced Phoenix, I think these are just your nickel extra jumbo frets. A 42mm molded nut, these can always be improved, it doesn't flush too well with the binding and the side of the neck. It is acceptable, a lot of people usually replace these. This one had been filed down to accommodate for the thicker gauge strings. The truss rod is two-way adjustable by a 4mm Allen wrench, and this is the cover for it. Phoenix-1000 logo in white, satin black on the top, white on the bottom, held in place by a single screw. The headstock on the Phoenix is a cool modern touch. It features the LTD block leathers, Deluxe after them, and the gold LTD locking tuners. This one is considerably smaller than the headstock of the Gibson Firebird. Look how huge it is. The size of the headstock alone greatly improves the balance of the Phoenix. The nut is 42mm wide or 1.65 inch. The 12th fret is at 52.3mm or 2.05 inches. Thickness of the neck at the first fret is 21mm or 0.82 inches. This is pretty thin. Thickness at the 12th fret 22.5mm or 0.88 inches. Comfy. Thickness of the wing is 40mm, 1.57 inches. Now let's compare it to the Firebird. The thinner wings on the Firebird look good, but they don't help with balance at all. To put things into perspective, check out the Phoenix in the Firebird case. Look at the position of the headstock. Now look at the Firebird and how much longer and bigger the headstock is. The fingerboard radius situation is interesting in the Phoenix. Should be 14 all around, but when I put the measurement tool, the 14 doesn't fit too well. When I put the 12, it's much better. So it's 12 over here and it's 14 towards the higher frets. They are bang on about the neck profile in the specs though. Thin U a little bit flatter than the Firebird. The Firebird has a thin C, a little bit rounder. Here's what I meant about the differences in the backs of both guitars. Look at the Firebird. It also has neck to body construction, but the wings, as I already said, are thinner on this one, so you can clearly see the neck going through the body. The Phoenix has thicker wings, which also improves balance and looks like a one piece of wood, but I can see the seam lines of the neck through body construction. The position of the strap button is a modern feature as well. You can see the owner of the Firebird moved it from here to the position of the Phoenix, which greatly improves balance when you're using a strap. I must point out that the Phoenix still neck dives even with the modern features, but not as bad as the Firebird. Both guitars feature this belly comfort colorway. It's a bit deeper on the LTD, a little shallower on the Firebird, and the horn on the LTD is more pronounced like this. Let me show it to you on the Firebird. The electronics compartment has the same shielding paint like under the pickups. This is the Seymour Duncan neck pickup cable, same style as the Gibson pickups, Gavit conductor braided wire. I see an Alpha 500K mini pot for the volume and the ground wire coming from the bridge circling all the pots, three-way switch and output jack. This is the cable for the bare knuckle 4-conductor pickup, it has the ground wire inside of it. The tone pot is a push-pull that splits the bridge pickup. Gold oval output jack cover with a gold washer, and these are replacement Logs brand buttons. The cover for the electronics compartment looks like this, satin black on the top, shooting on the bottom, and this is considerably bigger than the Explorer one, for example. You have a lot of room for activities here. You can fit active pickups, Fishmans, whatever. The neck feels comfortable with good high fret access, gloss finish and a volute near the headstock. The usual designed by ESP sticker near the volute, the stupid compliance regulation sticker that has no place on headstock, made in Indonesia, serial number IW for the World Musical Instrument Factory in Indonesia, made in 2020. I'm gonna show you one of these gold locking LTD tuners. This is the LTD locking tuner outside of the guitar, has the logo on the locking mechanism. It is marked C on the inside, probably standing for China, locks in place on the back of the headstock using these two, you don't need any screws. This Phoenix is already set in B standard. I managed to save the setup using the locking hardware. I'm just gonna put the same strings 1356 tight fit DR. Here's an easy way to restring a guitar with locking hardware and locking tuners. Feed all the strings through them, leave no slack, and then lock from the bottom. When you tune up, they're gonna end up facing generally the same direction. Before you rotate the tuner, point the strings upwards so they don't scratch the headstock when you're rotating. Cut them after you make sure that the setup is done. You are not gonna do any adjustment to the truss rod, they're in tune and everything. Another significant difference between the two is the weight. The Phoenix weighs at 3,409 grams or 7.5 pounds. The Firebird, despite the thinner wings, weighs considerably more. Granted, there's a vibroa on it, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference. This is 4,112 grams or 9 pounds. What do I think about the Phoenix? Honestly, I did not expect to like it that much. One thing in mind though, I don't like it better than the Firebird. These are quite different from each other. The Firebird shouldn't be trying to be a modern guitar. the Phoenix shouldn't be trying to be vintage. For those of you who like the shape of the Firebird and the Phoenix but want a modern guitar with a 25.5-inch scale length, get the Phoenix. If you like tradition, if you like the feel of Gibsons, get the Firebird. Unlike most Gibsons I've tried, I've managed to tune the Phoenix in drop A with a 56 gauge 6 string, and it didn't whack out of pitch every time I strum a bit harder. The 25.5-inch scale length certainly helps. These two have totally different vibes. When I grab the Firebird, I wanna play light rock, surfer rock, something like that. When I grab the Phoenix, I wanna play the dirtiest, slowest, heaviest doom metal and such. One is not better than the other. The Phoenix is the modern one, the Firebird is tradition. Whichever you choose, you can't go wrong. Owning both is a win. Buy both.